It is now basically illegal to defend your client too well. Well, as long as that client is President Trump. Not only is lawyer John Eastman, the former dean of Chapman Law School, facing RICO charges in Georgia, he's now suffered perhaps an even greater indignity. Back home in California, the state's bar is now recommending that Eastman lose his law license. Of course, the ruling is now subject to appeal, but the damage in this long-running uphill battle may already be done. The editorial team today over at the Los Angeles Times is crowing about the decision. They openly admit, quote, "When lawyers lose their licenses to practice law, it's typically because they mistreated their clients. Perhaps they improperly spent the client's money to pay off personal bills, rather than to hire investigators or experts, or otherwise work on the case. Maybe they regularly failed to meet deadlines for filing court papers, or just weren't sufficiently zealous in representing their clients' interests." The State Bar of California's case against attorney and legal scholar John C. Eastman was quite different, end quote. You don't say. Now, you think the Times editorial staff here would at least throw some kind of bone about Russian influence over our elections or something similarly insane to give their brazen lawfare efforts against the right some sheen of propriety for their clapping seal audience, but alas, they didn't. Perhaps they know how strong their institutional power is now, so they don't see any reason to do so anymore. Because they get right into the heart of it, which is what I started the night off with. That Eastman represented his client too well, and now he shall be punished for it. The article goes on to say, quote, "Only rarely do licensing authorities discipline lawyers for going overboard on their client's behalf, and for good reason. Lawyers should have leeway to try a range of arguments and legal theories, and should not be sanctioned for being novel or even audacious in advocating for their clients. They should not be punished for arguing theories not currently in vogue. They are protected by the First Amendment up to a point. A lawyer's duty crucially extends beyond the client. Attorneys are officers of the court and key figures in a system whose purpose is to determine the truth, apply the law, and achieve justice. California lawyers take an oath to support the Constitution and to conduct themselves with integrity," end quote. Or so says the lefties, always trying to get us to move past the Constitution, right? Because it was written by dead old white slavers anyway. Funny how they waft between righteous defenders of our sacred democracy in regards to the Constitution for any issue having to do with January 6, 2021, but then any event having to do with the riots of 2020 just a few days before, well, that whole shtick gives way to an entirely different one. I'm surprised former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi didn't tear up a copy of the Constitution in the same way that she did to a copy of President Trump's State of the Union address during that very same year, 2020. Joining us now to discuss is Josh Hammer, the senior editor at large for Newsweek. Josh, thanks for being here tonight.
Always a pleasure, Kara.
So it's no surprise that the Los Angeles Times is fully on board with disbarring John Eastman, just like all the other mainstream media outlets. But what do you make of their justification for it?
Kara, I'm trying to figure out where to start with this one. First of all, I'm personally pretty close to this. I've been friends with John for at least 6 to 7 years. We went to the same law school. I was a John Marshall Fellow at the Claremont Institute. That is the legal fellowship program out of Claremont that John has overseen essentially since that fellowship launched about 12 years or so ago. Now we have been on panels together. I mean, the man is a friend. And what they are doing here is nothing short of disgusting, un-American, Stalinist. I mean, use any tactic that you possibly want to. I mean, here is one bit of irony to throw out there, Kara. They are talking about how they are staunch defenders of democracy. They like to claim the moral high ground. They are defenders of the rule of law. Kara, they are trying to destroy the legal profession. They are literally trying to criminalize, in the case of the prosecution of John Eastman and Jeffrey Clark down in the Fonnie Willis case in Georgia. So criminalize on the one hand and then disbar on the other. The zealous offering of legal arguments that they happen to not like. Now, the actual legal argument that John advanced when he was defending Donald Trump in the aftermath of the 2020 election is a complex argument that involves the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the 12th Amendment. John actually wrote a piece for Claremont's own American Mind website about a week and a half after January 6th. It was called Clarifying the President's Ask or something like that. It's a long essay. He acquitted himself very well. He cites legal scholars who say that maybe this is a justified theory. He's right. It is well within the bounds of the kind of argument that a lawyer can make to defend his client, especially on a novel constitutional question that in this particular case, the U.S. Supreme Court had not ruled on.